All right, let's get right into it. We're about to explore one of the greatest unsolved puzzles in history. We're cracking open a book that has stumped the world's best codebreakers and smartest historians for centuries. Just imagine for a second, you find this incredible ancient book. It's filled with beautiful handwriting and these wild, colorful drawings. But you can't read a single word. Not one. Because it's written in a code that no one on the planet has ever been able to crack. Well, that's not a hypothetical. That's the Voynich Manuscript. It's real. We know it was made sometime in the early 1400s, and it's this 240-page beast of a book, packed with almost 40,000 words, written in an alphabet that we've never seen anywhere else, ever. And if you think the text is weird, wait till you see the pictures. There are entire sections on plants that don't seem to exist in nature. There are these complex, beautiful charts of the stars and zodiac. And then there's this really strange stuff. These scenes of little figures bathing in weird green fluids flowing through what look like organs. The whole thing is just bizarre. So for over 500 years, this all boils down to one massive question. Is this whole thing just a super elaborate prank? Beautifully made, but ultimately meaningless? Or is there something real locked away in those pages, hidden behind a lost language or a brilliant code? For the longest time, a lot of people were pretty convinced it was a hoax, just gibberish. That is, until modern computer analysis gave us our first real clue. And that clue came from something called Zipf's law. Now, it sounds really complex, but the idea behind it is actually super simple. In any real human language, you use a few words like the and all the time, right? And then most other words you use way less often. Zipf's law is just the mathematical pattern that this relationship always follows. It's like a signature for language. So researchers ran the Voynich Manuscript through the test. And the results? They were mind-blowing. Okay, look here. English follows the pattern, French follows the pattern, complete gibberish? Nope, not even close. But the Voynich Manuscript, it fits the curve perfectly. It had the statistical fingerprint of a real, genuine language. This was huge. It meant the book isn't a random collection of symbols. The text has structure, it's organized, it behaves just like a language. So this wasn't the solution, not by a long shot. In fact, it just made the mystery a whole lot deeper. The question wasn't if it meant something anymore, it was what it meant. So, that one test, it changed everything. It kicked off a whole new race among modern researchers to finally be the ones to crack this thing. Now that most people agreed it wasn't a hoax, researchers with powerful new tools started putting forward some really credible ideas for how we could finally read it. And then a couple of researchers, Kaspari and Vicini, had a potential aha moment. They were looking at one of the astronomical charts, and next to an illustration that looked a lot like a star, they spotted a word that looked familiar. It looked like the word polar. This was a potential Rosetta Stone. I mean, think about it. If that word really is polar and it's pointing to the North Star, then bam, you suddenly have 5 letters, P, O, L, A, and R. You have a key. And that's exactly what they did. Using those first 5 letters, they started to piece together a working alphabet. They saw that the symbol for P kind of looks like the Greek letter pi, L looks like a lambda. Pretty soon they identified another symbol, one that looks like the number 8, as the letter T. And that let them translate a word in a medical section, torpore, which is an old Italian word for dizziness. It all started to fit. So what's their big theory? They believe the manuscript is written in a common dialect of 15th century Italian. They think the author used a simple substitution cipher, where you just swap each letter for a symbol, and then mixed in a bunch of common medieval shorthand, kind of like the text speak of the time. But just when you think the case is getting solved, boom, a totally different researcher comes forward with her own breakthrough, and it points in a completely different direction. This researcher, Alisa Gladyseva, found her key in a different word entirely, lavanda, which means lavender. And from that single word, she claims she was able to do what no one has ever done before, decipher the entire manuscript. And according to her work, the language isn't Italian at all. It's medieval Galician, which is an old language from what is now Spain and Portugal. She argues the code is way more complex, too, that it not only substitutes letters, but also scrambles the order of the letters, which would make it way, way harder to crack. So here's the scoreboard, basically. On one side, we've got the polar theory, vernacular Italian, a simple code, and a partial translation. And on the other side, we have the Lavanda theory, medieval Galician, a much more complex code, and a claimed complete translation. Two totally different paths. Now, experts are still fiercely debating both of these theories. But just when you think we have to pick a side, the manuscript throws one last incredibly weird curveball at us. Another statistical puzzle. Okay, now take a look at this. In any normal language, like English or Latin, you get a lot of short words, and then the number of words gets smaller and smaller as they get longer. It's an uneven curve. But look at the Voynich Manuscript. The word lengths form this almost perfect symmetrical bell shape. That is not natural at all. This pattern is called a binomial distribution. And finding it in a text is so strange, it suggests that the words themselves might have been built using some kind of rigid formula, almost like the author was rolling dice to decide how long each word should be. It's a pattern that doesn't fit Italian or Galician or any language we know of. It hints there's another layer to this code that we still don't get. So, we are closer than we have ever been. Keys are finally turning in locks, but the complete truth of the Voynich manuscript is still just out of our grasp. And it leaves us with the biggest question of all. When we finally, fully crack it, what will we find? Forgotten science? Lost knowledge? Or just the beautiful, secret world of a single, brilliant mind from 500 years ago?